Welcome to Skill Session. Today we're going to talk about regular expressions, or RegEx for short. It's a way to define how exactly you want the context of a string or a piece of text to look. Now you can use that in a number of different ways. So there is the format itself. How does that look? How does that work? And then there's the context. How do we work with it? How do we use it in JavaScript? How do we use it in PHP? And what are the pitfalls? What are the problems that we might run into? So what can we use it for? First off, we can use it to help our users in the front end to make sure that they're typing in a proper name, a proper phone number, proper email address, all that stuff. We can use it in the back end to do the exact same thing, but why are we doing it twice? Well, in the front end, we can help them out so that it looks pretty and they don't have to type in things again and again, and so we avoid errors. But in the back end, we do it for security reasons. We can never rely on the front end for anything security-wise. And I'll show you why in this video. Now, there's a couple of pitfalls that we're going to cover as well. Sometimes when you work with regular expressions, you can actually end up getting a false negative when you're testing a string against your regular expression. And there are things directly in HTML, like the pattern attribute, that should be able to help us with just defining the regex and then not think too much about how to use it. But I'll show you why that's not really helpful in this video too. I'll start by showing you what I've built to test all of this with. First up, we have a form that's just going to allow us to enter a name, an email address, and a password. Then we've set aside a little bit of space for some JavaScript that we're going to use later on. Then we have some PHP that finds the values that were posted from the form and puts them into variables. We create a database connection, and then we bind the variables that we found to a prepared statement and execute it into the database. The last thing we do then is that we use a header to redirect into the same page that we're already on, and we're doing that to avoid a situation where we can hit refresh and end up posting the same thing twice. Now, nothing in this script is restricting us from posting the same thing into this form again and again and again and again. We can do that. But this is just general good practice. Whenever you're posting something, use a header to make a GET request afterwards so people can refresh a page if they want to without accidentally reposting. So this page looks like this. I can enter my full name up here and say Jack. I can enter my email address and say that's email, and my password, and obviously my password is going to be mom. I'll hit submit, and if I go over here and look at my database, I can select all my users and I can see I have this new user here who got the user ID 85, the name Jack, the email address email, and the password mom. Obviously there's a bunch of security issues here. Watch my other videos on security. This is purely on RegEx. So what we want to do here is we want to make sure a full name. Jack wasn't a full name. We want a full name. There needs to be a space in there. There needs to be some capital letters. There needs to be a bunch of things. So let's build some RegEx. Now, I like to always use a tool for this, just a visual tool to guide me through the process. And there's an online tool called RegExer. It's available on regexer.com and it's super easy to use. When you open it, you're going to have some basic expression up here. That's what we're going to edit. And then you have some text down here that you can use to test your regular expression as you go along. So I just use the name Jack. And I don't want that to be a valid name. I want something like a Jack Sparrow. That would be a valid name. I'm using capital letters to begin with here. So I actually don't want Jack Sparrow to be valid, because I want to have these capital letters. What else don't I want to be valid? I don't want Jack dash Sparrow to be valid either, but if it's Jack space Max Sparrow, that's fine. It could also be a hyphened name or a hyphened last name, so something like a Jack Joe Sparrow Jackson. That would be a valid name as well. So we have a couple of different examples, and now we want to build an expression that works with it. Now, a regular expression starts with a / to open the regular expression, and it ends with a / to close the regular expression. You can have a letter after it to say something about the reach or how to use this regular expression, and by default in regexer, it's set to G. There don't need to be any at all, and there can be multiple, but we'll take a look at those in a moment after we see what the problem is with the G. Right now, we have all these examples and we want to build something that will only hit the examples that we wanted to hit, not the ones that we didn't want to hit. So actually, the first ones are invalid and the next ones are valid. So let's try and build something. Now I'll show you the basic structure and then I'm going to show you a couple of ways to cheat to do this a little bit faster. I want to accept something that starts with a capital letter. So A to Z. I'm going to have to put some form of brackets around this. So now you can see that all of the capital letters are actually being accepted. So when I'm doing this, that means that I want exactly one of these characters. I can make another set saying lowercase a to Z. So now it expects an uppercase letter between A and Z and a lowercase letter between A and Z. And see, that's what it's marking down here to show that that's what we're getting. And notice how down here at Max Sparrow, that's actually two different matches right after each other. It's not the same one. But the lowercase letters here, I want to have at least one, but there can be more. So we have 3 different signs that we can put after something like this. We can put it like this, then it's exactly one. We can put a star, then it's optional if there are any at all, but there can also be multiple. Or we can say plus, then we say we need at least one, but there can be more after that. We're pretty far along. We're accepting parts of the names here, but we're not accepting any names as a whole yet. So we want to accept a white space. So we can say \s for space. So now we're accepting a white space. We could say we need at least 2 of these names. So let's throw these into a parenthesis and say we need at least 2 of these. So if I were to say star, that's 0 too many. I want 2. If I say plus, that's 1 too many. Not good enough. If I say question mark, that's 0 or 1. I want somewhere between 2 different numbers. So I can make curly brackets here and I can say that I want 2 to 3 of these after each other. So right here, it's actually making a match with these names. If I want to say that I want between 2 and 4, I can do this. But I can actually also just say I want 2 or more. Like this, 2, comma, and then no number. Then it means at least 2. And there is no maximum. Or I can do like this to say there's no minimum, but there is a maximum of 3. Or I can say that I want specifically 3 or specifically 2. Now, in this case, I want to have the names, but the last one I want to be special because I don't want it to end with a space. So the last one I want to have that specifically once, and the other ones here with spaces after them. I need at least 1, but there can be more. 1 or more of these, and then however many of the rest here that comes after it. So we're matching a lot of things down here. We're forgetting the dash here. So I'm actually expecting either a space or a dash. I had some Max Sparrow here that's not accepted yet. What if I were to say, we can repeat this sequence. So now we're accepting Max Sparrow. And we can say that we can have hyphens as long as we get something after this. So we can put in the hyphen and say there's a question mark. There don't need to be any, but there can be. And it's accepting this for everything except for the last one here, because we're still using the last one here saying that the last one needs to actually just be pure letters, and it isn't. So this part here should replace this part over here. And now we're accepting all of this, and we're not accepting any of this. Now I want to start the string here, and I want to end the string here. I do that with this hat symbol and with this $sign symbol. That's a way to say that this is only a match if it starts and ends with this. Right now it's not matching anything, but if I delete all of this, I still have a match. So we have something here that we can actually use. So we can copy this pattern. We're not getting these forward slashes with it when we're copying it. And then we can go over here and we can use that in the name input field. We can say pattern equals and then forward slashes, and then we can put it in between here. And we can add the G just to make it look exactly like it did up here. We can hit save. And now if we try to say Jack, some email address, email and some password, mom, I hit submit, then it's going to say, please match the format requested. Now, that's not really so great because our users don't know what the expected format was. How would they? I mean, they could right click here and say inspect, and they could look at the pattern here in the DOM, but for most people, this is gibberish. So we'll want to use some kind of a script to test this with instead, so that we have a chance to select what to tell the user when they don't reach the expected pattern. So we can do that in JavaScript, and we'll do that in just a minute. I just want to show you one more thing in the HTML part before we jump into the JavaScript part. See, in the email field, we've set here that the type is text. Now, we would probably set this to be the type email, and we would set the password to be of the type password. But we'll keep this as text for now. But in HTML5, we introduced a bunch of new types for input fields. So I'll remove the pattern now from this one, and I'll change the type of the email field to email to use the HTML5 built-in email type, which should validate an email address. So I'll put in a name, Jackie, email, emails, and my password is still mom. Submit. And now it's going to say, please include an add in the email address. Emails is missing an add sign. So it is actually trying to help us out just a little bit here. But this is going to be inconsistent if this is the way that we get our error messages when we're talking about emails, but not when we talk about full names. So we'll switch this back to just being text, and then we'll go down here and we'll test the full name once again, but with JavaScript this time. So I'll make a variable, say name pattern equals, and I have all this stuff that I copied from my pattern attribute. So notice that I'm not putting this into quotation marks or anything. I'm just leaving the regular expression completely as it is. And then I'm ending it with a semicolon. And then I have the actual name. So I'll just say var name equals document.getElement by ID name.value. And then I can test that by saying name underscore pattern dot test parenthesis name. So I'm writing in the pattern and then I'm just saying dot test name. This needs to be put into a function, check format. If the name matches the pattern, then I'll return true. Else I'm gonna say console.log I don't like your name, semicolon, and then return false. In order for this to do anything, we need to go up here into our form and say on submit, return, check, format. Now it's important that we are saying return first because this actually needs to return something to the form. If we're just saying check format, that's great. Or we're just running a function and that function happens to return false, but we don't care. By doing this, we're actually returning false. And when we return false to a form, that form is not being posted. So we're stuck on the page. We're not going to leave the page like we normally do when we submit a form. So if let's say Jackie, I hit submit, then it's going to say, I don't like your name down here. This is not very useful. So I've added in a couple of helpers up here just to make it easier to get that error message. So I'll say documents.getElement by ID name help.inner text equals, I don't like that name. I'll hit save, go over here, hit refresh, Jackie, submit. And now it says right here under the field, I don't like that name. Now you could color that red, you could do whatever you want with it. But the idea here is that you can actually give whatever messages it is that you want that can help people figure out what to do with this field. So you could write, please format it like this, Jack Sparrow. Maybe that gives them a hint. You can give them a much better explanation. And if I refresh, I can say, Jackie, submit. That doesn't work. If I say Jackie Sparrow, hit submit, that works. And now we have Jackie Sparrow here in our database. But she didn't have an email address or a password because we didn't set anything up for that. So let's get back into our regex and take a look at our email. Email addresses have a lot of different things that you are allowed to do or not allowed to do. So you could easily fall for the idea of just grabbing some regex off of the internet somewhere. There is a proper regex that will accept all kinds of email addresses, but email addresses are extremely complex. If you look at the specifications for email addresses, they allow for things like having a comment inside your email address, stuff like that. It's completely crazy what they accept. And the problem with just copying someone else's regex is you're most likely going to get some regex that you don't understand or that you haven't properly read. And so you won't be able to fix it if there happens to be a problem with it. So make sure if you're copying someone else's regex that you completely understand every single bit of it. Let's look at a couple of email addresses. jack@sparrow.com. jack.sparrow@blackpearl.com. jack-sparrow.blackpearl@pirates.movie.com. So you could do something like that, and then we can go up here and we can try and make something that matches with it. There are some signs that we accept: A to Z, capital A to capital Z. We accept dots, we accept dashes, and we accept multiple of these. We just want one or more of these. Then we want an @ sign, and then we want this again. And then we want a dot, and then we want some A to Z characters somewhere between 2 and 10, because that's going to be our last domain, like the .com or whatever. That's going to be what we have here. So this would actually match with most email addresses. I think we should probably add an underscore in here as well, but there shouldn't be too much else to actually doing this. Now, this would give us some basic validation. And before I leave regexer, I'll just want to show you one thing. They have a cheat sheet in here. So you can open this and you can see that if you put a dot into your regex, that's going to mean any character except new line. If you put a /W, that's going to mean any letter that goes into a word. \D, that's going to be any digit. \S, that's going to be white space. You can do the exact same thing with capital letters, but then it's going to be the reverse. Every sign that doesn't go into a word. Everything that's not a digit, everything that's not a white space. You have your square brackets here to make a collection of signs. You can put a hat symbol into that to say that the signs that are mentioned after it are not allowed. And you can put a dash between it to say that it's characters between. That's what we've been using a lot up here. We can use anchors to say that you need to start or end the string. And we can put a lowercase or capital B to say that it's either a word or a not word boundary. We have some escaped characters. For instance, the dot means any character except new line. That's great. But what then if we explicitly want a dot? Well, then we can use \dot. We can use it without the / here because it's in a range of characters. But if we wanted it instead of the add out here, then we would have to put a \ in front of it. We can add a star if we want to use the star symbol, because basically the star means anything. We could have added a star instead of a plus sign up here. And we can have the / itself. If you want to have something like that in your regex, then you'll have to use a / before that \. And you have a bunch of other rules down here, and I think we've been through most of them. The last one I want to draw your attention to is this one down here, where you can say that you want either something or something else. So either the letters A, B, or the letters C, D. That's fine. So you have 2 specific cases that you'll accept. You can have more of these. You can have 10 different ones and then say, I want A or B or C or D. But sometimes when I show people this, I run into the question, what if I want to say and? Because normally in programming, you say and or. Those are your main operators. You can't say and, for the simple reason that you cannot have 2 different characters in the same place in a string. And that's what you'd be saying. This next character needs to be an A and a B. That doesn't make any sense. So for that reason, we only have the or version here in our regular expressions. So now that we've looked at that, let's copy our regular expression here. And let's jump over into our page here. And let's try it out directly in the console. So if I enter an email up here, this email address is completely valid. I can jump directly into the console down here, and I can insert the pattern. I can say var email pattern equals this pattern. Now we need the /, and we had a G after it, right? For saying global. Let's semicolon, and now we have our email pattern. Now I want to have my email in here. Email equals document.get element by ID. Email and .value. Semicolon. So now I can see that my email is Jack Sparrow down here, and I can see that my email pattern is the pattern down here. So if I say email pattern dot test email semicolon, it's going to return true. Let me try that one more time. Arrow up to get the same code that I just punched in. Enter. False. What's going on here? I'll try it again. Now it's true. Try it again. Now it's false. What's going on? Well, this is another common problem area that people stumble into. The problem is that inside of our pattern here, email pattern, we have this G at the end. And that means that we're using this as a global expression. So what does that mean? That means that when we're testing the same string again and again, it actually remembers what match inside the string that it came up with. So let's say that we had jacksparrow.com and then a space, jacksparrow@boat.com. Now we can update our email with the code here. We can say that we want to test that email against the pattern. It's going to say true. If we do it again, it's still true because now it's matching with the second email address. And then the third time it's going to return false. This has its use cases, but since this is not the use case we're looking for, we should avoid using that G, even though it is on by standard inside the regexer. So if that's how you're building it, just don't use that. Instead, we'd probably want to say that our email pattern doesn't include the G. So if we just say that the email address doesn't include the G like this, and we go up to test the email, it's going to say true every single time. So let's take this pattern without the G, copy it, go in here and say, this is going to be our email pattern. Variable equals, there we go, semicolon. And just like with the other one here, I could add that hat symbol to say it needs to start like this and it needs to end like this. And I can actually copy all of this code right here and then just say my email, get element by ID email, the email pattern against the email. And then we have the email help, and we don't need to write anything to the console anymore. that doesn't look like a real email address. So I'll hit save, go back, hit refresh. Hi there, mom. Submit. Name doesn't work, so it's just returning false. And right now we actually have a problem because as soon as we accept something, we're returning true. We don't want to return true. We want to return true as the last thing if we haven't returned false. So up here, we actually just want to, I'll remove this thing from the console. And then up here, I'll just want to write something else in the helper field. Cool name. And the same goes for the email address, cool mail. And I'll remove this. I just use that as a way to debug. Refresh. Hi, mom. Cool name, but that doesn't look like a real email address. Okay, so let's move on to the password because I warned you before that an email is a little bit special. That's nothing compared to a password. In a password, we want to make sure that you have capital letters, lowercase letters, and special characters and numbers. So that's 4 different things, but we don't care about the sequence of them. We just want to make sure that all of those things are in there. So how do we do that? Well, differently. So let's look at some code here. Var password equals document.getElement by ID password.value. And then I could say if, and I can put some regex directly here, / character A to set. I want to have at least one, but there can be more, and a /. This I want to test against my password. So if this is true, we actually don't need that. If this is false, we have a problem. So if this is false, then we want to send a message, right? But let's put this in a variable for now because it's getting a bit annoying. So var email help equals this element. So if this is not true, then email help dot inner text equals you must include a lowercase letter. And then if we don't have a uppercase letter or more, the test password will tell you must include an uppercase letter. And if you don't include a number between 0 and 9, you must include a number. And if you don't include one of these signs, and I'm just going to select some random ones, you must include a special character. And then a last thing we could check here is we could just take a look at the string length of the password. If that's less than 8, we can say your password must be 8 characters or more. And for all of these, we need to return false. I'll hit save. Over here, I'll say refresh. My full name is going to be full name. That's a valid name with our regex, right? Jaxi at thesparrow.something. And the password, mom. Well, cool name, cool mail, but you must include an uppercase letter. Well, I'll write mom in all capital letters. You must include a lowercase letter. So mom like this? Yeah, but you must include a number. So mom3, it's going to tell me that I need a special character. So I'll include a less than sign and it should be okay. So now we ended up including the user here saying hi mom or saying Jaggy Sparrow, j@s.com, and with the password mom less than 3. But we still have a problem, right? Because we can't just post anything here. It's not gonna accept this. We're not gonna get anything through, but we have 2 different ways of getting stuff through anyway. So let's get our hack on. I want to say that I'm anonymous and I want that to be my email address and my password. I can't submit that. Now it used to be that I could simply go in here to the inspector and go down here to the script, because this is the script that's doing all of this. Just delete that script. Go up here and say on submit. I don't care about any of that. Just return true. And then hit submit. But the browser is actually remembering what things look like. So one thing I can do here is I can jump down here and I can say document.querySelector and then form inner HTML of that is going to be exactly what it is, because I just corrected it. I just need the browser to rewrite it so it'll reread it. So if we do this, then I can go in here again and say anonymous, anonymous, and anonymous. I can hit submit and that still doesn't work. Or actually, I could just override the function, check format, and return true, semicolon. There we go, that's into the DOM. I'll hit post, and now we posted. And another way that I could do that is I could take my URL up here, copy it.
I could go into Postman. I could insert the URL right here, change it to a post request, go into my body and say I want this to be web form encoded, and I want my name, and I want my email, and I want my password, and all of that, I want that to be Postman, Postman, and Postman. And I'll send it. And if I go over here and I look in my database, I can see that Anonymous got through, Postman got through, we all got through. So what can we learn from this?
Well, there's no security involved with this whatsoever. This was only something we did to help our end users get a better user experience, to make it easier for them to write something that makes sense and then correct it before they actually send it in. But if hackers want to bypass it, they can bypass it. So what do we do with that? Well, we are receiving the inputs down here in our PHP, and the PHP makes up our server. So this is private territory. The hackers can't get in here unless we do something stupid. So let's try and do something that's not stupid. So once again, we can say name pattern equals, and we can take the same name pattern from up here. We can copy it, we can paste it. Now in PHP, we do need quotation marks around it. We didn't in JavaScript. And then a semicolon. So in PHP, you compare a string to a regular expression like this. You say preg underscore match, and then you take your pattern, name pattern, and you take your variable, the name. So I want to say if this is true, then I actually don't care about it. But if it's not true, I want to just say die. That's the best part of PHP, die. Die. I'll just say, if the name pattern doesn't match with the name, die. So nothing else is going to happen now. It's just going to stop execution. So let's see how that works. We just saw how Postman posted something in here. So let's open Postman again and add a 2 to all of these. And then hit send. And go back here to the database. Hit submit. And you can see Postman 2 didn't get through. If we go in here once again and we write it as a proper name, Postman Sparrow, and then send that, well, now it is getting into the database because now we're upholding the regular expression. But this is done in the backend, so there's no real way to hack this unless we're leaving other vulnerabilities in place. So that's why you always want to check your regular expressions in your backend code and in your frontend code. So now you're well on your way to building systems that are way more user-friendly and way more secure. And you could use it for a bunch of other things like setting it up in your database so that the fields in your database only accepts input that matches with your regular expression. You'd use a trigger to do that. Go look it up. It's going to be too complicated for this video. Or you could use it to build an IDE. Something like Visual Studio Code, which we're using in these videos, has syntax highlighting. So this text is blue and this is green. And all of this is to help us write proper code. It's almost definitely using regular expressions to achieve this. So you can use it for a bunch of different things. But that's going to be all for this tutorial. This was today's skill session. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.